Hi, I'm Mark Whittle, and this is the amazing Anna Mathur.
Hey, and this is the Take Flight podcast. And in this second episode, we spoke all about challenging narratives, habits, and recognizing where things that you've been through are impacting your present day life.
Enjoy.
I'm Mark Whittle, former athlete and city worker turned life and performance coach, and this is the Take Flight podcast. We talk with the greatest minds and performers in the world and understand what it takes to reach your fullest potential and be unapologetically you. If you're finished with conforming to societal norms, done with being told who to be, and ready to take your own life into your hands, subscribe to this channel to hear the most unique conversations and be prepared to be enlightened, educated, and empowered. Our goal is simple: to support and help you navigate your own hero's journey. Enjoy our content, and when you're ready to go that step further, join our private or group coaching programs by inquiring at www.takeflightworld.com or by following me and DMing at markwhittle_tf. Fasten your seatbelt, it's time to take flight.
Okay, this one we're going to talk about transformation.
Okay.
Change.
Yeah.
Do you know what I really want it to be more about? Because we touched on the subject of generational trauma.
Yes.
I want to more be like doing the work, right? So we could talk about things that happen in our childhood, how you navigate life. Specifically, I'd love to talk about navigating success and being seen in different ways and stuff like that, and how that affects the way you've healed and to the lengths that you've healed.
Yeah. Big stuff. I love it.
So I don't know where you'd want to start with that. I mean, good old Gabor, one of my favourite quotes was, or is, it's not what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you as a result of what happens to you.
Yeah.
So I think like all of our internal wiring, the software, comes from how we've internalized things that have happened to us.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I don't know if you just want to talk about like some of the major things. You talked about your sister at the end of the last conversation.
Yeah, so I think those big life events, when those things happen, things feel unsafe, right? We don't know how to navigate it. We don't know who to turn to sometimes. We don't know what we should be feeling. We don't know what to do with all of these feelings that we're navigating, whether it's grief or just feelings of rejection. And in those moments, we don't feel grounded. We don't feel like we have a map. We don't feel safe. We can feel quite lost. And it's what happens after that and how we find that sense of safety again, and whether we're able to give that to ourselves or seek that from someone else, and what narratives that prompts and how long they go kind of running wild in our life, and like how long we're living to those narratives. Like all of these things find us where we are. But the great thing is that we can change them, we can challenge them, we can change them. And I guess that's therapy and coaching, isn't it? It's looking at these beats, these drum beats that we've been kind of living to for our lives and thinking, actually, we don't have to.
You know, it's interesting. I wasn't going to talk about this actually, but it just made me think. I did a talk last week, I think this was, to the NHS, all the senior leaders in NHS England. And it's a different audience to who I'd normally be speaking to. And I was doing this talk and it was like deadly silent. I was thinking, oh God, it's not landing
it's not resonating with them.
So I kept checking it, and it was actually a good challenge because I had to reframe a lot of what I was saying, and I was just really checking in with them and getting some feedback to be like, okay, I'm on the right lines. But it was afterwards that I had so many people come up and like share like deep things that had happened to them, and it just reinforced me. I was like, shit, everyone's got something.
Everyone. And even if, sometimes we don't even realize that we have something. Sometimes we don't even realize how much of an effect something has had on our lives until we begin to recognize that there's been a cost, or something doesn't feel right, or I keep all of my relationships kind of go down this path. And then we start observing and realizing that actually that happened years ago, or that happened in my childhood that I was told, or I felt like it didn't matter, or it wasn't a big thing. Actually, it has impacted me. And once we see that, then we have that opportunity to address it and change it and process it. And
let it go, and then see it when it comes back.
Peel back another layer.
Yeah.
You will get, I think the more you open up, the more other people feel safe enough to share something of themselves. And I think it's because we all just want to know that it's safe, right? We want to know that when we go out on a limb to share something of ourselves, we hope that we will feel accepted and validated. And for many people, that's not the case. You know, I think we can all think of those moments in life where we've taken that step to be vulnerable and we've been completely and utterly like misunderstood. And then it's so tempting to think, right, I'm not going to share that again, or I'll never share that example in a talk again, or I'll never, when actually there will always be people who get it and it resonates with.
How have you found it with, I'm interested because you've done such amazing work. You were just sharing with me that you've done 5 books. The 7th is written.
Yeah, it's the secret.
Or the 6th is written, right?
Yeah.
Which is a secret. And then you got a 7th, potentially.
Yeah,
so if that happens, then you'd do 7 books in 7 years.
Yeah.
You're amazing because you're so vulnerable and you share you share all of yourself, really. Like, how have you found doing that then? Because you're on the journey of healing yourself anyway.
Yeah. I think as a therapist, and I'm sure you probably feel this as a coach, I have the absolute privilege of seeing behind the scenes in so many people's lives. So I know that if I'm talking about intrusive thoughts, or if I'm talking about burnout, or I'm talking about like total messy parenting moments, I know categorically I have proved that I am not alone. So I don't feel the same shame. I don't have that sense of, I can't talk about this because I'm the only one, people are going to be shocked. This is just, I'm going to just get radio silence, because I know that, yes, it won't resonate with everyone. And yes, there will be some people that are like, oh my gosh, what's she on about? But actually, there will be people who feel really freed up by what I've shared. And also I have the framework of therapy and psychology to kind of be able to apply some kind of insight to it, because I'm dismantling these moments myself. And therefore I can provide other people with some thoughts on that as well. So yeah, it's just knowing that I'm not alone. Yeah. So that's really helpful.
I hadn't really thought of it like that. That's amazing. And sometimes I probably take for granted that people walk through the door for their first session with me, and it's probably the first time they've been seen for most of the topics that they bring up.
Yeah.
Because it's just so normal to me. I'm just like, I get it.
And you're kind of unshockable. When you have the privilege of people sharing some of their deepest, darkest fears with you and their anxieties. For me, I've heard them all in different forms. Like, I'm not easy to shock, actually. And that, I think, can be so therapeutic when we talk to someone, we share something, and we, for so long, we've been fearful that if people know this about me, they'll think completely differently. But when we're met with compassion and acceptance, and they don't just get up off the sofa and do a runner like we fear, that's when we start to dare to believe that maybe we can accept that part of ourselves as well.
Or that it isn't really who we are. It's just something that's happened, or a story, or
or a thought that actually is very similar to the thoughts that most other people have.
Yeah. What are some of the, because you're saying like the psychological concepts, what are some of the ones that have helped you the most with unpacking your stuff?
Oh, what are some of the things that have helped me the most? I think recognizing that rage is often a sign of overwhelm. That's been massive for me, because I think I have felt so judgmental and horrified at my own irritability sometimes and my own frustration. And this is definitely in a parenting context, when there's a lot coming at me. And I think as parents, we want to be calm, and that's the archetype of a mother, is that you are calm and you are loving and you are nurturing. So therefore, when I've had moments of just kind of joining my kids in an absolute meltdown, I have felt so horrified at myself and so critical and judgmental, and questioned my ability to be a mother and my deservedness to have kids. And I think there was this moment in the pandemic where I messaged my husband. He was working upstairs on his laptop, and I had the 3 kids, and I was done. Like I was on the edge of just, I don't know, like screaming, just I was not okay. And I messaged him and I said, I'm going to lose it. Like, you need to come down. He didn't come down because he didn't see my message. Right. And I literally just completely, I just screamed. I roared. It was like really carnal. I think I like lost my voice, and then everyone was crying around me, even more than they already were. And I felt so ashamed. I came up here to the sofa and I was literally, because my husband ran down with the laptop and he's like, oh guys, sorry, I've got to go. Like something kicked off my kitchen. And I came up here and I was just feeling so ashamed of myself and so horrified. And I remember, as I do, so this is when I start applying the framework and thinking, I've got to find some self-compassion here, like, because I've got so much shame. And I remember thinking, like, actually, it's just a sign of overwhelm. I'm just meeting needs all the time, and my needs are going overlooked, and I'm not able to respond in a way that I want to, because that takes energy, and I'm in fight or flight, and I've got no buffer to stress.
Yeah.
So seeing it like that enabled me to find compassion for myself. It enabled me to think, okay, what do I need? How can I meet that need? What do I need to put in place? And it's seeing things through the lens of kind of compassion and like fact, rather than just straight attacking myself.
Yeah.
That's been transformational, because I think so many of the behaviors that I haven't liked in myself and have criticized are actually just a symptom of doing too much and not meeting needs.
And so was the main thing like feeling like your needs weren't being met?
Yeah, and I wasn't acknowledging them for myself.
Yeah.
So even if my husband might have been really happy to facilitate my need being met, I didn't even know what they were. And this is when I'm working with mums, this is often a really emotional part of the session where I say, tell me 3 things that you need. And they normally at this point break down, because they don't even know. They don't even know what they need. And I think this is, if you get your worth out of the doing, and if your identity is all about output, that's the only language that you have. Like, sometimes we have to start finding the language for the needs that we have. Yeah. Otherwise we don't actually know what they are.
When was the time that you felt like you didn't have your needs met prior to that? I
think, oh gosh, so many times in life I haven't had my needs met, but it's because I haven't wanted to admit that I had them. And I haven't wanted to let other people be part of the answer to meeting those needs. And I remember after my 3rd child, I knew that, like, it's just a lot having kids, right? You're just tired and you're exhausted, and I was like hormonal. My friend wanted to come and see me, and I'd sent her a message saying, don't come over, I'm a mess, right? And I looked at my phone and I thought, wait a minute, this is everything I've learned not to do. And I deleted the don't, and I sent her a message saying, come over, I'm a mess. And she came, and I cried and I laughed, and we had a lovely time, and she was there in the thick of it all. And I think that's it. Sometimes when we feel at our worst, we want to push people away until we feel like presentable, until we feel together enough, when actually that is the time we need people. So I think life has just chipped away at this resolve of mine to be neat and easy. And this is a generational stuff, this is, sometimes we have to recognize that was a coping mechanism at one point. It's a way of dealing with something going on in our lives. But when that becomes a lifestyle and the way that we respond to life, it's not going to serve us.
It's funny, because even as you're speaking there, like the topic of like connection comes to mind, because in those moments where your friend did come over, the depth of connection that you have there, and being able to cry and laugh together forms such a special relationship. And I often think about couples whose children like go to school together and stuff, and you make friends with their parents, and then you have like lifelong relationships, or you hear about people who have that because they've sort of had this shared experience together. And the same with, if you're experiencing someone who's got poor health, and you've just come together in a couple with someone whose parent isn't very well or something, but you go through that with them, and then they stay together for the rest of their lives because you've almost been forced to show all of yourself during that crisis or that period of difficulty.
It requires vulnerability. Connection requires vulnerability. And I think we have never, as a society, been so connected to so many people, but never felt so lonely.
Oh, you think you know your friends because you've seen what they've been posting in their story each
absolute
week.
Rubbish. And what's sad about it is that we feel like it ticks a box, but it is socially depleting us. So say we have like this much social energy, right? You might spend all of that social energy spending half a day with a friend that you love, and you've had the best conversation, you've really connected, and you might spend all that, you've spent that energy and you've received so much back. Or you spend it on this WhatsApp group and that replying to that DM, and you're frittering all of this away on tiny little interactions that are like the equivalent of eating a Haribo sweet every time you're hungry. And at the end of the day, you've got a sugar crash, and nothing in you is nourished by what you've taken on. And I think, we've never been so connected to so many people, but we've never been so lonely because the quality of that connection is just not hitting the spot.
Yeah, I tried to the reason why I did these retreats is because I was thinking that back in the day, talking like 100 years ago, maybe more, not too good on my history, but you'd sit around the fire with your friends and your family every night. You go to sleep when the sun goes down, and you'd sit around the fire during that period, and you'd tell stories, and you'd be connected in that moment at the end of each day, almost like therapeutic, right? Of to speak about what happened during the day, and digest all of that and process it with other people and laugh about it or cry about it or whatever every day. And we don't do that ever for ourselves anymore.
But we spend the equivalent amount of energy on interactions that are just not giving us much of nourishment. It's not meeting that need to feel seen. And you know what you said there, it's like doing life with people, that's community. And that's what we're wired for, is we are creatures of community.
Yeah.
And we live in, how many people do we actually spend time with each day? How many people actually know what's going on in our lives? Loads of people know what we're doing today because people can see these things on Instagram, even what you're eating, but how many people know what morning you had or how you're feeling at the minute? Or, and there needs to be those kind of 2, 3, 4 people in your life.
Yeah, I also think that if you don't have those people that know that about you, that you end up telling the wrong people eventually. You're just vent or say it in the wrong environments or wrong circumstances.
Yeah, because if we don't feel seen and known by few people, that need's still there. And then if there are lots of people around us, that's when we get into that place of I need to get that from those people on social media, or I need to get that from those people at the school gates, or I need, we have this hole in us that is only filled by kind of need, validation of and feeling seen as kind of authentic beings. And it's like a vacuum. We can either fill that with those few people that we're having honest, authentic, vulnerable conversations with, that know us and live alongside us, or it just sucks in like a black hole all of the likes on Instagram and it doesn't satisfy.
Yeah,
because it's not the currency of our heart.
I mean, I don't know where to go with that one. The whole digital thing just blows my mind. It's like the more we can get out and with our friends and connected with people. But again, okay, let's talk about the parenting stuff, because that's another challenge, that you have to sacrifice stuff when you become a parent. So 10, 8 and 5, your kids? Yeah. Okay, so mine's 4-year-old daughter, 1-year-old son.
Yeah.
So there was only so much work I could really do on myself before I became a parent, because I was still so, it was still too much about me, that the self-sabotage would almost stop me growing or helping myself any further, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Whereas when there was someone outside of myself, I saw the way I was reacting with anger, or just not how I wanted to be with my daughter when she was a newborn. And I was like, this is not me anymore. I can't be this person anymore. So she's almost been like my greatest gift to change, because it was way bigger than me all of a sudden, and she was here, and I was like, I'm not being this person anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You're smiling. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's like children. They are like walking, talking triggers of anything and everything within us that is needing or unhealed or unaddressed, and it is, and we can naturally, we do as we've always done. So unless we disrupt and choose to challenge our own behaviors, we will just do as we've been done to. We will just do as we've always been done, and that will just play out again. And it requires a huge amount of humility, I think, to sometimes realize that actually if I carry on living this out, it's going to be damaging, and just recognizing that no matter how much work we've done on growth, we're always going to have things to work on. We're always going to be like, kids just it's confronting. Like being a parent is just confronting. I was a perfectionist. That does not translate well to parenting. Like, it just does not. Like, trying to be a perfect parent is a fast track to just feeling like an absolute failure of a person, because you're parenting imperfect children with an imperfect map. And so I had to address that quite quickly.
Yeah, I don't have a choice. But some people, I imagine, don't, because it's hard and they don't know how to.
Yeah.
But I think they can also be a reflection of what's great about us individually, right? They can also reflect back the amazing parts of us.
Absolutely. And I think we don't recognise that enough. The other day, my son, he was in the bath and he goes, he was just having a nice little time, and he goes, oh, I'm such a lucky guy. He said, and I was like, what's he saying? And I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I've got you and I've got daddy. And I was like, this is gratitude, right? He's expressing gratitude. And gratitude is something that has completely like transformed the way that I see the world since I've really been kind of implementing it in my life. So I was like, how great that he has like learned that from me. And I didn't naturally have that wired into me. So sometimes you see them do things and act in a way that just reflect back something that you've worked on, that they now have just become a part of how they see things as a result.
That's amazing.
I just think that's great. And we so quickly look at the other side of the coin, don't we?
Did you get to enjoy that moment and be with it and just be like, wow?
Yeah, I loved it. I was like, sometimes these moments we need to, I call them like parenting caffeine, because there's enough in parenting that's challenging and that we can find ourselves questioning ourselves. But those little moments where you're like, I was doing a bad job. Like, I'm doing all right.
Yeah, you are.
Just a short break from this incredible conversation to talk with you about how I transformed my energy management, transformed my quality in sleep, transformed my mood, all through my relationship and consumption of caffeine. About 11 years ago now, I've spoke about it a little bit on the podcast before, but about 11 years ago now, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue, and it was one of the toughest things I've been through. It altered the way that I was able to experience many things. It had a huge impact in my capacity, of course, and it meant that things like caffeine were quite difficult for me to consume in a way that benefited me. So about 3 years ago now, I discovered an incredible brand called London Nootropics. And ever since then, I've consumed their Mojo product nearly every single morning. I'd say for the last year, I have consumed it every single morning. And the Mojo product includes ingredients such as ginseng, which is amazing for waking the body up in the morning, but also importantly, cordyceps mushrooms, which has transformed the game for me. It's amazing for boosting energy, really great on the immune system as well. So particularly when my immune system was low through my periods of chronic fatigue, it was massively helpful. It helps me to sustain my energy without a crash. There's no jitters. And for me, running my own business, as well as having 2 young children, it has really been game changing. So if you feel anxiety, if you feel deep tiredness and fatigue anytime during the day, particularly in the afternoon and those crashes that follow with high caffeine consumption, I recommend strongly that you give London Nootropics a try. I'm going to be doing an episode with the founders, Zane in particular, who's a friend of mine and has been for a long time. And I'm only doing sponsorships with brands that I consume, with friends that I admire and businesses that are helping the world. And that's that's why I'm excited to support them and also to support you if you're looking to improve your relationship with caffeine. So go to londonneurotropics.com with the code TAKEFLIGHT and you'll get 20% off your order. I still actually personally pay for my coffee subscription with London Neurotropics, so that should change soon. But in the meantime, please do enjoy, and I would love to hear any feedback, how it has benefited you positively as well. Enjoy the rest of this fantastic episode, and we'll see you soon.
It's funny, I had one with my daughter where the short story, or the short version of this, is that there was a couple of instances where she was getting really upset. She couldn't find something on both occasions, same day. I was like, it's all right, babe, like, we don't know what's going to happen, we don't know where it is, but we've got to believe. You've got to believe that we're going to see it. So visualise, where are you going to see it? And I was doing all these things with her, and she was like, all right, we're going to find it in the bathroom and all this. And we went and found it. Right. And then later on, she'd lost like this ring thing. I'd take her to the trampoline park and she'd lost this ring. I left it in the restaurant. Just got in the car. But then we went back in, they'd tidied it away and luckily not thrown it away. So we got it again. Amazing. But I'd said the same thing, you got to believe. Then this morning she comes up to me, she goes, Daddy, guess what? Yesterday after PE, I normally get the teacher to help me put my tights on, but I said, I believe, and I did it by myself.
Oh, how wonderful.
I was really having to, like, because I was getting ready to come here, and I was really had to stop and be like, be there for it, you know?
Yeah.
Rather than just let that moment pass.
Just absorb it.
Just absorb it.
Because we're there for the other side of it, aren't we? We're there for the moments it all goes tits up and we're just like, oh my gosh, what have I...
Yeah.
So yeah, absorbing and allowing those to sit with you.
I think the humility thing that you said is like absolutely game changing, and I hadn't seen it myself, but probably the biggest part that allows you to change and to stop your ego driving you back into old behaviours is allowing yourself to be humbled. Is it the same thing, humility and being humbled?
Yeah. I mean, humility is kind of what being humbled brings us, but we don't have to find ourselves in those situations in life where we're like humbled to feel humility.
Okay.
You know? Yeah, we can cultivate it without having to.
How do we do that?
I just think choosing to accept ourselves a little bit more in our unfinished state, in our imperfect state. You know, that's the humility, is knowing that we've all got blind spots, we've all got dark corners, we've all got rough edges, we've all got like untied up bits of ourselves, and I have to accept myself in knowledge of that. Otherwise I'm just always going to be striving for more, and then I'm never going to get there.
Yeah. There's it just usually triggered another thought for me there. I think it's how much coffee that we've had this morning. Could you talk earlier about like you said the physical or the biological, and then there's the psychological. And if we're talking about the physical, you could say like your ADHD that you've got, which you've now diagnosed me.
Driving, like the motor, like the excitement and the...
Yeah. So then there's that side of it, right? Which there's an unhealthy and a healthy side to that. But then there's the psychological side, like this, which I'd say like is more like the narratives and the stories that we've taken on. So I'm pretty aware of like a lot of mine. I'm sure there's loads that I'm unaware of. But what were, specifically with your childhood, what were the core stories that you took on that have been either good or bad?
Yeah. So I think a big one for me was to be a good girl. And that's because when I was really young, my sister had cancer, you know, there was a lot of like uncertainty, there was a lot of worry, there was a lot of like life kind of being kind of built around appointments and hospitals. So my reaction to that was, because there were so many feelings going on, I didn't want to add to that. I didn't want to add any stress. I didn't want to add any worry. I just wanted it to be good and easy. So that's how I coped at that point, was basically I ended up internalizing so much, right? Because not everything about life is good and easy, and we're not, as people, we are not always good and easy. You know, we're messy and contradicting and lots of feelings all at the same time. So I tended to feel like there are good feelings and bad feelings. It's good to feel calm and patient and kind, and it's bad to feel angry and frustrated and conflicted. So all of those feelings I just internalized, and I just didn't want to trouble anyone. I didn't want to add extra upset. So I took on this kind of good girl narrative to cope, but that just became my life. That just became my identity. So it wasn't like I'm just trying to be good to not disrupt things further or make things harder, but it became just, I have to be this person. So yeah, that was like a pretty big one to unlearn.
Does it still show up?
Oh yeah. Like I think these things often do, especially when life is a lot, you know, we can just kind of find ourselves reverting to old ways of being because, you know, they can just be quite deeply ingrained. But I do try and catch myself, and I'm so much better at being messier and vulnerable and open. And generally, you know, instead of people feeling like it's too much and running away from me, which is kind of how I used to fear it would be, is actually, it just draws you closer to people. And it's easier to be messy, and I mean emotionally messy. I'm quite a tidy person. But it's easier to be that because that is fundamentally what we are. And we either spend our lives kind of defending ourselves against it and protecting other people from really seeing us and feeling disconnected from people and ourselves, or we can just embrace that is just who we always will be in different forms and relate to people from where we find ourselves right now. And I've just found life to be so much more richer that way.
Well, I suppose anything other than that is not inauthentic, but you're just trying to be something other than yourself, your truth.
Yeah, and believing that is who you should be. And I think that's what you were saying about kind of stress is, you know, when we're living in a way that isn't aligned with where we actually are, and because it takes a lot of intention and energy to try and be anything other.
Yeah.
And we feel like an imposter in our own lives.
I was saying to you in the gap there about like my greatest achievement probably ever in my life is and I'm still working on it, but the ability to not let my fear of abandonment or rejection get in the way of my relationship with my daughter. But I just think that if I can do that, then I have such deep belief that anyone can get over any of their issues.
Yeah.
Or any of the things holding them back, or any of the narratives or stories that they're telling themselves that they are.
Yeah.
Like they can change that as well.
There's so much hope. It's so incredible how much hope there can be. So I think sometimes we feel so stuck and we just kind of feel quite resigned to, oh, this is just who I am. Like I will always struggle with anxiety, or I am always just really, you know, tense and stressed, or I don't cope very well in certain environments. When actually it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
It's so liberating, but it does take effort and time and energy and discipline and finding a different way to speak to ourselves even. You know, it's big stuff, but it's possible.
Yeah. Is your sister still present? Like, do you still... No,
so my sister died.
But as in like, sorry Anna, do you still feel her like presence? Do you know what I mean?
I don't know. I think people have asked me that before. I was 10 when she died, and I think in the way that I feel her presence is just more of this kind of constant awareness of life's fragility and how much of a gift it is. Like I said to my husband the other day when I was brushing my teeth, I said, oh, it's another day gone. And he was like, well, that's a bit depressing. And I was like, I actually find it really empowering is noticing how time passes and how precious it is and how we'll never get that day back again. And I know that could very easily heap all this pressure on us to live live life to the full, like do, you know, be maximum in everything, like be intentional about everything, make the most of everything, like be grateful for everything, don't let any opportunity pass you by. And that's just, to me, that's just like massive pressure. You know, I just want to be in my life. And I think that's what it prompts me to do. It's just this reminder that I'll never get this day back again. My kids will never be this age. I'll never be this version of me again. And I just want to be in it. Because I look back and there's so much of my life, like I was living for other people and experiencing life through the lens or fear of what people thought about me. So I wasn't really experiencing it. I wasn't really in it for myself. And I just want to be in it.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a depressing thought, but I actually find it really, grounding.
No, it's amazing. I think that's incredible. There's that quote that Jim Carrey said. It's something like, if you aren't willing to downgrade your life for a year, you care too much about or if you aren't willing to downgrade your life for a year for the life you want,
Yeah.
you care too much about what other people think. And I actually watched a film yesterday. It was really weird, but it's kind of on what you were talking about. It was called My Old Ass.
Ooh. I'm gonna look that one up.
It's on Amazon.
Okay.
Some free promo for the film.
Amazing.
Where this girl, basically, again, really weird. She goes with a couple of friends into the woods, does mushrooms, and then her older self comes and visits her.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it's kind of like she's her 39-year-old self visiting her 18-year-old self. And she basically is trying to tell her to be more present with her mum and go and hang out with your brother and go and talk about, and then like how her life changed, how she was beyond that point. It was amazing. It really was, but it's what you were talking about there, like really just appreciating the small things, which we know are the big things. Go and give your mum a hug.
Yeah.
Go and actually look at your kid in the eye and see them and being fully engaged and fully present with them. And
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's seeing each other. It's being with people. And I think so often we're like, right, when I've achieved this or when I've got all that done, then I will really like focus on the stuff that actually matters.
Yeah.
But that opportunity could get taken away at any minute.
Yeah.
And that's not to incite anxiety. That's the truth of being alive. Like, and I just think I often think, I imagine that I'm 80 and that I've been like zoomed back in time and I get to live this day again. And I love that because it's like, oh, my 80-year-old self would probably see this stage of my life through rose-tinted glasses. But actually, there is so much privilege within it. And there is so much beauty within the mundane. And I want to see that. Because our whole culture is telling us that actually, no, you find your purpose in this, or this is how, be more productive in that, and this is how you get value, and this is how, look at this, look at that. And it's just distracting us away all the time. And I think that's why we feel so much guilt, and we feel, we're just kind of, we're numbing feelings, and because we know that we're not really, really living. And that's a hard feeling when you get to the end of the day and you look at your screen time and you're like, wow, what have I done with my hours? I'm never going to get them back.
Yeah. That's why I like discipline and awareness is so key today, because all these tools and things around us which are designed to hold our attention and take us out of the present moment.
Yeah, and we can't be cross with ourselves for being lured into that because it is incredibly powerful. But I've downloaded an app recently and I like using technology to help me deal with the issue of technology, right? But nice. It blocks apps certain times of the day.
Okay, what's the app?
It's called App Block.
Nice.
There we go. Okay, nice and easy. But before I used to place restrictions on with like my iPhone settings and screen time, prompts, and it would come up and say, you can't use this app. And it would be like override for 15 minutes. And I'd be like, override.
Yeah, I do that.
And we're just, we're going to keep going back to those things because when we're stressed, when we're overwhelmed, we just want to change. We just want to check out, right? But the thing is, we're checking out into the busiest place in the whole world where our nervous system is on edge because it doesn't know whether we're going to see a funny cat video or a traumatic news story. Like we're poised. Like we think we're chilling out, we're not. Like I can see on my watch when I'm on social media, it's showing stress. If I'm picking up a book, it's showing rest. That is the power, So we're going to the busiest place in the whole world when we're needing a break. So it's just starting to recognize those little things of like, what decision am I making in these moments when I've got feelings like. If I'm having a tense conversation with my husband, I can feel my hand going to find my phone. I just want to check out.
Avoid,
So we learn that we can't withstand difficult feelings.
I love that frame. Like you think you're on your own because you go to the other room and you're on your phone, but it's the busiest place in the world. Yeah, that's insane. I also love the 80-year-old frame. Like I do that as well. That exact thing, like the 80-year-old frame. But I've got to be careful because sometimes I'm start crying and like holding her hand. It's like, oh God.
I know, but those are the moments where you're in it and you're just seeing it for what it is. And I think we need more of that. Yeah.
Anna, what are your recommendations for? I don't want to direct it too much, but like I was going to say soothing the nervous system, but really just like caring for the nervous system.
Yeah, I think one of the big ones is feeling, just allowing yourself to feel. I think we're so scared of certain emotions because we're so used to checking out of them. So we might feel grief or sadness or loneliness. And what do? We quickly, it might be you feel overwhelmed, so you grab a glass of wine or a drink at night and you're like, right, I don't want to feel that, I'm going to numb it. It might be that we scroll when we feel sad or anxious and we stop it. And I like to think of feelings as waves, and they peak. So they get to that point, where we're like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. I don't want to feel like this. And no sooner we feel that for like a minute, 2 minute maximum, and then it just starts to abate again. And it's like a wave that passes. But if we keep interrupting it as it's getting to that kind of top point, we just lose confidence in feelings. We just think, I can't feel that because I'll just be overwhelmed by it and I might never feel myself again, or, it will completely knock me off track. When actually, as we ride feelings out, we start to grow in confidence that we can withstand difficult emotions. And if we check out of it, we're not giving ourselves that credit. So I think something we can do to really soothe ourselves is just not check out. We've got a feeling and learn that we can withstand it. And actually, we're processing it. It has a very physiological benefit when we just let that emotion pass through us rather than do something that increases the stress off the back of it. So that's really important.
How do you balance that with, like, let's say if there's something you need to feel but you're about to go on stage to do a talk, or someone might be needing to go to a meeting, or
it's not always convenient to feel. So sometimes I think we do just kind of like put in a box, but the most important thing is that you go back to that box and you think, wait a minute, before I went on I was feeling like quite upset about something someone said. How am I feeling about that now? Actually, I'm feeling all right about it. But just don't let it be the rug that you keep shoving stuff under, because the rug gets lumpy and you're going to trip over it. It's going to come out sideways. Feelings, when we ignore feelings and experiences, they don't just disappear into thin air. They're there inside of us, and they're probably going to come out in a way that we don't expect, when we don't expect, or in a behavior that we're trying to like overcome. So yeah, if you need to put it in a box for a bit, fine, but just make sure you go back to the box and check in and see if there's anything you need to do or say or share off the back of that.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Last one.
Last thing to soothe your nervous system is monitor how you're talking to yourself, because that is the most important conversation you will ever have in your whole life, is the one that you have with yourself. And say you do something that isn't ideal, you're stressed, right? You know that you've made a mistake. If you are then abusing yourself internally and bringing up all your past failures, labeling yourself as a failure, you're just going to increase that level of stress, right? And just impound it, and you're going to be adding guilt and shame on top of just a circumstance. So if you can try and coach yourself and just think of someone that's really kind and supportive, and think of what they would say, it would probably be like, oh dear, it wasn't really ideal, was it? These things happen. Let's just have a think about what we need to do next. You didn't mean to do it quite like that. And then just, that's just so much more diplomatic, and it means that there's a way forward, and it means that you're not just stuck with all these other layers of criticism to deal with on top of what has already happened. So yeah, just notice how you're talking to yourself and bring a little bit of warmth and compassion into it.
Amazing.
Changes a lot.
I don't think there's anything, well, that might be an exaggeration, but I'm not sure how much goes above self-talk as far as like if you really want to change, like noticing your thoughts and how you speak to yourself and how you speak verbally out loud as well. And like I'd notice myself getting annoyed at myself, being like, I'm so exhausted, I need to get out of this particular, but I'm even annoyed at myself even saying those words. Some of it has truth, but you've got to, don't fall into the habit of always making that the thing. So yeah, it's absolutely game changing. And it's one of the things I spoke about in that talk last week actually, was blank faces again. I was like, do you realise you're having a dialogue with yourself?
Yeah.
I mean, like, what are you talking about? Like, we're talking to ourselves all the time.
All the time. And how we do that matters.
Yeah.
Hugely. Yeah.
Okay, last question.
Okay.
So this is one I used to ask all the time. So I haven't asked this question for over a year.
Okay.
So imagine there's two versions of yourself. take yourself back to a particularly challenging period in your life. And one of those versions has gone on to be you who sat in front of me now, had all the success that you've had, all the books, all the people you've helped, all the talks, everything that you've done. One of them didn't do those things, wasn't able to for whatever reason. What are the differences between the version of you who's managed to go on that journey and the version that didn't?
Just accepting my messiness, allowing myself to need people. That's the difference. I wouldn't be where I was now if I hadn't let people be friends to me. Yeah, having
Amazing.
people on the journey, not being on my own.
Love it. Thanks, Anna. It's been amazing.
You. I've loved it. Thank
Me too.
you.
It's been
Thanks
awesome.
for coming to my house and having me on your pod.
That has been awesome. And having in your therapy
Yeah,
sofa.
It's been therapeutic for me.
Yeah, me too. You're amazing. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I love that.